Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be trying the highly controversial Jones Road Beauty What the Foundation. You've probably seen it on TikTok at this point where there's different people with different preferences trying this foundation out, and it's gotten a lot of bad reviews. Now, a bad review or a negative review doesn't always mean that it's an honest review, because it really just depends on the preferences and whether it works for the person with set preferences. And I think a lot of people, especially influencers and content creators, they might feel like they need to try out everything and then they give something a negative review and people will take that at face value, which they definitely shouldn't. So every time you watch a review, including this one, it is very important that you take your own preferences into consideration. Now, I do have an oily T-zone, I have pores, I have some, dark spots as well as acne spots, and I am normal everywhere else except for my T-zone. It does get a little bit oily. That being said, I don't like to set my T-zone because it does get dry if I do that. I used to feel like because I have any sort of oiliness on my skin that I needed to wear a super full coverage heavy matte foundation, and I have really come to realize just on my own by trying more dewy foundations that I actually prefer it, and it's totally fine to blot, it's totally fine to powder only where you need to. It is very rare for me to opt for a full coverage matte foundation. I prefer something lighter coverage, something a little bit dewy, set only where I need to, spot conceal, etc. So that being said, like, I enjoy the spectrum of really like light coverage, like skin tint, light coverage, slight coverage, medium coverage, and then full coverage. And what the foundation is really more of a skin tint foundation. It even says on here, it says moisture tint, so it's almost like a tinted moisturizer, if you will. I have the shade Porcelain, so I did have to also remix mine because mine came a little bit separated with the oils, so I did just want to make sure I mix it all in. And I have used it previously, so I feel like I have a good idea on how to work with it and the kind of look that you can really achieve with this foundation. I do want to mention it has a very strong herbal scent, so if that's something that bothers you, definitely do not recommend just purely because of that. The scent is pretty strong. But I'm going to be applying it with my hand on one side and with a brush on the other side just to show you how it performs. I am currently sitting in front of a window, so it is in direct natural light, and I will get up and close so you can really see the texture of the foundation and how it looks on my skin. So I'm going to be starting off with literally just this much and then blending that out with the brush first. I feel like I need a mirror. Definitely do not recommend a sponge. It will just not work. I tried it the first time with a sponge because I prefer to use a sponge. It does feel a little sticky. So you could see that maybe just like subdued some of the spots, but for the most part you can really see still everything else poking through. Super light coverage. And it really gave my skin a super nice glow though. And so I would go in and just spot conceal this. So I'm going to go and do my forehead so you can see what it looks like on the forehead. Again, just a little bit. Just really trying to spread it around. I really love the way that that sits like up there on my forehead. It just gave it like this dewiness to it. And I forgot to mention that I did prime / moisturize with the Bobbi Brown vitamin enriched face base, and I had that on for at least 30-40 minutes before I went in with this. I did not prime otherwise. Now I know you're gonna say you have some pores and stuff, like why not use a pore filling primer? Pore filling primers actually like tend to break me out as well as dry my skin out, so I just avoid them altogether. I just embrace that I have pores there and there's nothing really to do about it. And now onto the nose. The nose tends to be really tricky for me because I do have even more pores there. I feel like the longer it's been sitting on my skin, it's just really like almost like blurring and melting in, and like that looks really good on my nose actually. That took a second to focus. The lens is going to be focusing as I'm like going up close and further away, just keeping that in mind. So just giving it a second to focus, but that looks so beautiful. So next I'm going to go in with my fingers on this side, and you're going to need less than with a brush because your fingers really just spread it around. They will not absorb any of it. I do think I prefer it with a brush, I'm just kind of tapping it to really help it melt in. I personally don't love the feeling of product in like the texture of my fingers, so I definitely think I prefer the brush application. Here it is. And then you can build it up just like the tiniest amount. And I do want to mention, I feel like maybe it's just like a couple of them, just like when mine came a little separated, but it has these little like granules here and there. Hopefully you'll be able to see it if I put it up. I don't know if you can see, there's like little almost balls, and it just seems like it's pigment, and they do completely smooth out, but it is definitely like a little bit like kind of off-putting to feel that. So let's do this side of my nose. My finger, I think I put on too much. And this the thing is, like, you can put on a little bit, but really don't be putting on too much. Now it is pretty warm here today. It is pretty warm in here. So I feel like because of that, I can kind of feel it sitting on my skin a little bit, specifically on the side that I just applied it. But here you can see the difference. Super, super glowy. Definitely if you have dry skin, I think you would really like this. So here's the side with the brush that has been sitting on my skin for a little bit. So I got a little bit of coverage here, not really here, but just kind of like smooth things out and gave me this like super natural glowy look. Now will this last all day? Probably not. Like I would have to definitely set at least the perimeter of my face, because otherwise I would go crazy with my hair sticking to my face. There's definitely something to consider. Even if you have dry skin, this does stay tacky. Can you kind of see? So it does a sticky thing where it kind of bounces if you touch it. So I would definitely set this lightly, or if anything, just don't wear your hair down and on a windy day. And then this is the finger side. I feel like it looks better on my nose on this side with the brush than with my finger. And then the forehead, I think the forehead looks really good. And then of course I would spot conceal, and here's what it looks like on my chin. My chin can sometimes be a problem area with more like wear time versus when a foundation is first applied. But overall, I feel like I'm looking really dewy. So let me sit back a little bit more. You can see how that looks. Super fresh, super dewy. I can definitely feel it though, especially I do feel like I would probably just lightly dust the center of my nose for sure, and then just really set the perimeters of my face. So I feel like I'm really going to enjoy this, maybe more so in the fall and winter actually. But I feel like my skin, I feel like it just looks better and better the longer I have it on. So let me finish off the rest of my base and do some setting, and then I'll show you how it looks after. To spot conceal, I put on the Kosas Revealer Foundation in 02W, and I set it with the Pat McGrath Labs Light Skin Finish Sublime Perfection Blurring Under Eye Powder. To conceal, I use this concealer. This is by the brand The Same, I think it's pronounced, Cover Perfection Tip Concealer in the shade 1. And I lightly dusted my whole face with the Dior Face and Body Powder No Powder. So super, super light coverage. I have previously heavily set this foundation with actually the ABH loose powder with a dampened brush, and I had absolutely like no separation. Like it was kind of wild. But today I wanted to show you a light setting on my skin just so you can see. So you can see the spot over here is a bit more concealed, and here's what it looks like. It still is dewy. I do feel like I can feel it on the skin just a little bit, but again, I feel like it's because it's hot in here. I think if I had like the AC on, which I really need to turn it on actually, I think it would be fine. So I don't know if I would recommend this for like really warm climates. I think it's going to depend again on your preference, your skin, etc, etc. But I think I like this foundation. Do I feel like it's for everyone? No, I really feel like it's going to strongly depend on what your preference is. Makeup is just so subjective, so everything works for everyone differently, especially anything that goes on your skin. I really feel like skincare, foundations, powders, concealers, and all that kind of stuff just really varies so much depending on what climate you're in, what skin type you have, as well as your skincare, what is your just general skin history. So I think it's always very important to keep that in mind when you're watching foundation reviews. Don't watch foundation reviews of people who don't have your preference of makeup. Don't take negative reviews as an honest review, because it's not always the case. Not saying the negative reviews that we have seen on this foundation are dishonest, but it's really just the preference that matters in this case. So it's really just the overarching preference of what you want your skin to look like, and I like a whole spectrum, so I thought I would try it out and give you some of my thoughts on it in case you were interested to just see how it performs, see how it looks. I really feel like seeing things like this in action and seeing the texture and just how it smooths over the skin really helps me to know if I would like a foundation, because I personally definitely know, like at this point of at 30 years old, like what kind of foundation texture is going to work for me and what isn't. There's definitely some like more liquidy, like super liquidy, almost kind of oily foundations that I just know will never work for me no matter what, and the moment I see the texture I know it's not gonna work for me. So I hope this video was helpful. I just really quickly wanted to film it in front of the window, but let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more videos like this from me. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe. There's so much makeup content uploading my channel and much more to come. You don't want to miss out. So thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.